Okay, so let's get things moving, things started. Again, we're going to reconnect on where we left off last Friday. Because I'll be talking quite a bit today, at some point I may start coughing. I'm serious, I'm not joking. I may start coughing a lot, so again, don't worry. That happened yesterday, and people thought that I was gonna, they were celebrating already, that, hey, it's gonna go. No, but again, so if it happens, because it can happen just like this, something can pick my throat and I'll start coughing, and I'll change color, and I'll go purple, blue, all the rainbow. Okay, so again, don't worry, but it may happen because of the amount of talking that I have to do today. Okay, so Friday you had a chance to start, actually, hopefully finished, step number 5, which is about doing the entity framework, the database, having data stored in the database, retrieving data from the database, okay? So what I want to do now is I want to show you how you had a chance to do it. Most likely you have questions at this point. Maybe it's working for you. Maybe it didn't work for you. That's fine either way. But I'm going to go step by step on how that works. Again, I'm focusing on the most important aspect of Chapter 8, which is database, repository, entity framework. Again, there will be a lot here. So I would recommend that you get your notebook there and you start to make some notes. You don't have to submit them. Don't need to submit them. Just write down some of the things that we're going through here so you can remember later on. And actually, if we have time today, I would like you to look at your list and add anything that might be missing from your list and compare notes with a friend there. So you show your notes, he or she will show their notes as well, so you can compare notes. Because if you don't take any notes from here, you're going to leave that door and everything will be left behind. Nothing will really stick around too much. You're going to see that I'll be talking a lot here, way more than what I usually like talking. So there will be a lot of stuff here. And at some points, your faces will go, just, what's going on? Because it's so much. It is a lot. I'll tell you up front, it is a lot. But that's okay. So if you feel that it's a lot, it's a normal feeling. Okay, it's okay. So again, make some notes, and we're gonna use them not to submit, but to exchange notes later today. Okay. So I'll be mixing a little bit of PowerPoint and codes. Mostly codes. I'll just refer to our PowerPoint here and there to show the high-level view of our diagram. Okay, but it will be mostly about coding today, and some concepts as well. So, as you saw before, initially we had the fake repository, which you had the chance to practice that before last class. Then, with step number 5, what we have is we have the entity framework repository. The code that you're going to be seeing here, if you want to try to make some notes and copy them, that's fine, but it's provided there already, okay? So if you go to Centennial, I've uploaded under source codes, under Sports Store Chapter 8, I have already uploaded the code for all the steps, okay? So you can pick up, if there is any step, let's say you want to have a look at step, the video number 8. You want to practice video number 8. What you should do is you should go here, come here, and okay, so I want to go through video number 8. So you pick 7, you use that as your starting point, and then you go through video number 8. Okay, that's how you can use the videos and use the source codes. This is cumulative, which means that what is in part 5 is also, what's in part 5 is what is in step 5 plus what is in step 4. So it's cumulative here. If you download this one, you don't need the rest of it. Again, so I hope that this makes it flexible for you to practice any particular video that you in play any particular video and practice anyone that you may want to, okay? So it's all here. Okay. So initially we have our fake repository. Now we're going to expand to our entity framework product repository. This is I will not call this a real repository because this is real as well. It's just hard-coded. So we opted to call it fake, okay? But it's in memory repository, okay? This is also in memory. However, who feeds the data to this one here? Where the data comes from for this one? For the entity framework one. Where's the data?
The database.
In the database, okay? So the data is stored in the database, and we need to, somehow, this needs to communicate with the database to get that information, okay? Now, how can this one here communicate with the database? Well, let's see which other elements we have connected to this. So what this knows how to do is it knows that it has a collection of products. It knows that it may need to add a product, to update a product, to delete a product, to sort the list of products. It knows that it may need to do those things, but it doesn't know yet how to do that, okay? Application DB context is the one that will bridge our repository in memory, because remember, this is in our application memory, okay? So this component here, this class, this object, will be the one that will be able to allow our repository, this is in memory repository, to communicate with the database that will be here somewhere, okay? So this is the one that knows. But here's the thing. .NET Core provides something for us to be able to talk more in a more flexible way, in an easier way with the database. It provides something to us. What is the name of that something that will be sitting outside of our model, because it's not that we coded that, but it's provided by the framework to help us communicate with the database. So which component is that one? That's the entity framework, okay? So we have entity framework, which is a set of libraries, namespaces, that will allow our application to talk to the database in an easier way. Entity framework is not the only way. There are many other technologies, even available in Microsoft, that you can use to talk to the database. There is something called ADO.NET and others as well that will allow you to talk to the database. We have just chosen entity framework amongst many libraries that are available to be able to talk to the database. Okay, so this class here, this object, is the one that will bridge the repository with the entity framework. And then entity framework is really, again, we don't have control over this. It's given to us, so we don't code this. That's the reason why I make it outside of the model, okay? So we just use it. We use it. That's it, okay? Now, this component here, this library, this namespace, is the one that actually performs the connection with the database, okay? This is the one that does the bridge here. And what we're going to be doing next, actually, let's see here. We're going to play 4 minutes of this video here. I think it's important to give you a little bit of the context. What we're going to be going through is how does this look like? How does this look like? How do we initialize this? How do we do all of it? How does it know where's the database? We're going to go step by step. Again, it will feel a bit overwhelming, but that's okay. That's normal, okay? That's normal. Let's have a look at this video here. Let's see if I can play just 4 minutes. It's a bit of a long video, but the first 4 minutes is really what I think it's important. Just confirm this.
what your repositories should look like. They should act like a collection of objects stuff in your application. Now the first argument, so in this lecture I'm going to explain clearly.
So what he will be doing here is, the approach that we're taking is to use this thing called repository pattern, which is a strategy to solve this kind of scenario that we have in-memory repositories and we have database to be accessed, okay? So he will be talking about this what repository pattern really means. So let's have a listen here and a look.
Okay, this is my favorite lecture in this course because there are so many blog posts and videos about repositories and many of them conflict with each other, which made me confused about the repository pattern for a long time. So in this lecture, I'm going to explain clearly what repository is and what it is not, why and if we need it, and address some of the misconceptions about repositories. So what is the repository pattern? I'm going to start with a definition from Martin Fowler's book, Patterns of Enterprise Application Architecture. Repository mediates between the domain and data mapping layers, acting like an in-memory collection of domain objects. I've highlighted in-memory collection in this phrase because that's the key here. So what are the benefits of the repository pattern? The first one, again based on Martin Fowler's book, is that it minimizes duplicate query logic. So imagine in a few different places in our application, we need to get the first 5 top-selling courses in a given category. Without the repository pattern, we'll end up duplicating this query logic over and over in different places. In situations like this, we can encapsulate this logic in a repository and simply call a method like get top-selling courses, which takes 2 parameters, the category and the number of courses to return. So this is one benefit of the pattern. Another benefit of the repository pattern is that it decouples your application from persistence frameworks, in this case, entity framework. So in the future, if you decide to switch to a different
I just want to clarify what decouples mean. Who can tell me what is decouple? What do you understand decouple means? It makes it less connected. It makes it less dependent. Let's put it this way. It makes it more independent. The different components of the application becomes more independent, becomes more decoupled. Okay? So that's what decouple means. Okay.
Persistence framework, you can do so with minimal impact on the rest of your application. Now the first argument that comes here is that some developers say, but who would change the persistence framework of an application? Well, let me tell you something. The fact that this does not happen very often is not because it's not desirable. It's because most of the time, application architectures are so tangled and tightly coupled to entity framework that it doesn't give us the freedom to change it. A while ago, I read somewhere on a blog that on average, every 2 years, we get a new persistence framework. And I think that's very true. First, we had ADO.NET. So we used SQL connection and SQL command to access the database. Then Link to SQL came along, but it didn't prove to be successful. Next, Entity Framework version 1 arrived, which had so many issues. Nearly at the same time, Hibernate got popular. Then after 4 versions, Entity Framework reached the stage that it was reasonable to be used in production. But still at this point, it had a heavy object model that was not testable. Then they introduced a new model, DB context. Now they are working on version 7, which is a complete rewrite, and there are some breaking changes. Not to mention that along these lines, we have had other persistence frameworks like Dapper, ORM Lite, Petapocos, and so on. So our persistent frameworks are constantly changing and evolving. And if you want to have the freedom to explore a different persistence framework with minimal impact in your application, that's when you should use the repository pattern. Now, there's also another benefit with the repository pattern that some claim, that it makes it easier to unit test your application. But that's partially true. And that's if you're using an older version of Entity Framework with object context and object set. The new DB context and DB set objects have interfaces that you can mock to unit test your applications. So you don't necessarily need the repository pattern to unit test your application. Now, the theory behind what...
Okay, so I'm going to keep it just up to here. And I'm going to just relate this back a little bit to our diagram. Here's what he's trying to say, is that, yes, the database will not move around that much. Database will still be here. But this part here, how we access the database, it keeps changing. It keeps evolving. Microsoft keeps, not only Microsoft, but the other technology companies as well, they keep creating new strategies, new ways to access the database. So imagine that you don't have those different layers here. If your application is too mixed, as you saw the spaghetti, it's too spaghetti or interconnected with Entity Framework, you're going to have to change a lot in your application to use a new framework. However, if you keep things like this, what you can do is, today you have Entity Framework product repository, but tomorrow you may want to try ADO, I'm just going to use the first one that he did as ADO.NET product repository. So you just move that, you just change that, and you go to one line of code in your code, which I'm going to show, and make the switch in the entire application where you start to use the new approach instead of the old approach. That's why we keep the elements decoupled. They are not intertwined too much, okay? Anyway, I wanted to give you a perspective. Any questions at this point? Anything comes to mind? Padlet is open as well, so feel free to use Padlet too, okay? Those were from last class. Feel free to use Padlet too. If you want to explore more, again, go through the whole video, by all means, okay? But for now, we are okay right here. So I'm going to start to flip to the code and walk you through how we put this together. Let's start with this. Let's start with our application DB context. Let's see how this looks like. When you see this context, DB context, keep in mind that this is the bridge between your repository and whatever framework you are using. This guy here, it knows a lot about this. These are very coupled. But after you go here, this one no longer depends on this. This one depends on what this is doing. Which, again, this is the one that is tightly connected with the entity framework, okay? So let's start to have a look at our application DB. Okay, so I don't have it open yet, so let me open this. I'm going to open two Visual Studios here because I may need to refer some codes back and forth. On the first one, I'm going to open step number 4, the code for step number 4. So let me go here. If I can find it. Well. Seems that I did not create this one. So sometimes my Windows Explorer, it freezes, so I think it's frozen right now. So it needs a second to think about what's going on. It's live. Come on. Again, I'm just trying to open here the correct project. that you're going to use as a starting point. Okay, so we have that there. So in one, I'm going to open step number 4. In the other one, I'm going to open step number 5. Okay, so let's have a look at our application DB context. So if you go to models, you're going to see that we have this thing here called application DB context. Now, let's not so much focus on each and every single aspect in little detail about the syntax that's going on here. Some of the things that we're going to be doing with MVC, I'll say this. In MVC, we trust. Okay? Because there are things that happens with MVC that you don't see. But you have to know that this is what's happening, even though you don't see that clearly happening. You're going to see that I'm saying this many times throughout the day today, okay, throughout our interactions today. So let's start here. DB context. Remember that the guy mentioned a little bit about DB context, okay? So DB context is provided by the entity framework, okay? The entity framework core. Actually, one step before that, we need to open our project, right-click there, edit sportstore.csproj, and then we have to add manually this line of this. This is not a line of code. This is a configuration of your project. Okay, so we have to add manually this line here, so that Entity Framework Core is made available to your project. Okay, so you have to add this. Again, make sure that you add that. Otherwise, you won't be able to use Entity Framework in your project. To be quite honest, I don't know why it has that. We have to do this manually. I would have assumed that there would be a way, an option to do that from the interface. But again, if you do that manually, that will work, and Entity Framework will be available to your project. Okay? So that's the first thing. Well, and also make sure that we use this version here. This is not the same version number that he was talking about. That version number, I mean, I'm quite sure that we're using 4 or even 4.1. This is a version of the library, okay? So that's not the same exact version that he was mentioning in the video. Anyway, do that one, add that so we can use Entity Framework, and then let's go back here to our project. From here, we are, as I said, we are creating our application DB context, which is the bridge between your new repository and Entity Framework. This is the one that is aware about the Entity Framework. Nothing else is aware about the Entity Framework aside of this one here, aside of this guy. Okay? Now, what is this? Is this a property, a function, a method? What is that? This is a constructor. Why is that? Why do we know that this is a constructor? Same name as the class, and what else? No, there's no get and set here. In constructors, you don't have gets and sets. I'm not talking about this, okay? I'm talking about this one, okay? There's no return type, okay? So two things that classifies something, any structure as a constructor, no return type, and the same name as the class, okay? So this is a constructor. In this constructor, we are sending some options to it, okay? Right now, it's not clear, of course, which options we are sending, because this is just a definition of the constructor. We are not calling it yet, okay? But bear in mind that the options that you're going to be sending to this constructor is the path to the database, is the address of the database. Can you tell me where is that address stored? Which file is that address, the address to the database stored? I think I heard there. App settings, yes. So the address to the database is stored right in this file here, okay? So that file is created when you right-click on the project and you go to add new item, and then you go to app settings here, okay? So it has to have this very specific name. It has to be called app settings, because this is how the application will be able to locate where are the settings of the application, the configuration. The only setting that we have is the connection string, okay? You can think of a connection string as the address of the database, which includes, see, when you talk about database, we have a few different components. We have the server that the database is located at. We have the database name. And we must have a way to be able to log into that database. Usually it's a username and password, but in our case, because we are running locally, we are trusting our accounts. When you log into your computers there, we are trusting that the same account has also access to the database, so we can use something like this. Trusted connection equals to true. It means that we don't need to provide a username and password to access our local database. It will just get from the environment of your computer, it will get your name, your username, and not so much your password, but just your credentials, and say, hey, let me try to access the database and see if this person has access. Oh, it has. Okay, great. So let's move on. So you don't need to specify here clearly, this is the username, this is the password. However, when you're using usually a remote database, you usually need to provide the username and the password, but not in our case here. We are dealing locally. But here we have the server, which is in a way, it's the computer that has the database, the server instance, okay? So we are using LocalDB. LocalDB is a smaller version of SQL Server, okay? It's a smaller version, it's simpler, it's not as flexible, but it comes with Visual Studio. It comes with Visual Studio, so we can create database-driven applications like the ones that we are doing. Create, okay? Without having access to a full-fledged SQL Server application environment, okay? So it's, again, smaller, comes with Visual Studio, and we can use that to store our database. And then we have our database name here, Sports Store. Database has not been created yet. This is just an address that will be used in the future. Let me, any questions here? Anything that is not making sense? Again, we are seeing how the different pieces, they fit together, okay? App connection, DB, context DB. This guy here will need to know this address. A big step of what you're going to be doing next is how can we read that setting there and provide that to our application DB context, okay? That will be a big step that we're going to do in a second.
So if we create tables, or we like import something from database, will store in app setting?
Okay, app setting is just the address of where is that database. Where is it? Because the database will give us access to the products table, the clients table, the orders table. All the tables will be inside of this database. So with this address, we know, okay, that's where the database is. And when we connect to the database, we can access the products table, the customers table, the students table. We can access the tables that are located in this place. It's like, I'll give a rough metaphor comparison here. You have the address of your house, of your apartment where you live. In your apartment, we have different I lost the name here. Different rooms, yes, different rooms in your apartment. You have the dining room, the kitchen. So the address to your house is just where everything is. But then you enter in your house and then you know the different places, the different rooms in your house. That's a little bit about what's going on here. We know the address of the database. When we get there, we can access room 1, room 2, table 1, table 2, product table, clients table, user table. Okay?
So the tables would not appear in which folder? Let's
No folder here. No. The tables, the database is completely outside of the application. Imagine that, completely outside. So we have the application here. The application goes and connects to the database. Database is this thing over there. It's right there. Application is here, database is there. And then because we know the address of that, we can communicate. But again, it's outside. Now, even though it's outside of the project here, but the database in the tables, in the fields, will be created based on what's being defined here. We're going to get that in a second. Okay? Let's go in separate time. So this is the address. We have our bridge there. We have our constructor, which we have this options parameter, which we're going to be using in a bit. Then we call this base. What does that base means? What is that base doing there? We have a constructor we are calling base. What is that? So this base is calling what? DB context constructor, exactly. Okay, so this base here, so our simple constructor is just calling the base constructor and sending the options. That's it. Okay? Again, our options will be just the connection string. Yes.
What is this option?
Our options will be just the connection string. So the option is just, you see, right now, you are looking at the DB context. We have to give to DB context the address of the database. We have to provide that, but it's not been provided yet. Okay? We're going to be using the constructor to give. That's what we are evolving to get to that. I'll show in a second. Okay? We are getting there. Again, just a lot of moving parts here. Okay? Make your notes there as we go along. Just a quick note about this. We know that this is a constructor. What is this? This is a property because we have a get and a set here. So an auto property. Now, you see, this is a data set of, this is a data set called products. But a data set of what? Of products. Okay? So what this line is telling me, and that's what Entity Framework will do in a few minutes. There is a lot that will be done in a few minutes. But what Entity Framework will do is that it will create, because of this, it will create a table called products for us. And in that table, the fields of my table will be the properties of products. This one here, yes. This one here, yes, because it's, so when Entity Framework is going to figure out this table, it will say, oh, this is a DB set of products. But whose product? What are the properties of product? Well, it looks to this one here, because we have it there, you see? We have here, and it goes here to the product. It will go through each and every property of product, and it will map to a data field. So in our table called products, we're going to have a product ID, name, description, price, and category. Again, we are, let's say, building up to that, okay? So let me see what's next. Okay. What's next is that we need now, yeah, go ahead. DB sets is just the, it's a collection of products. In our case, we are using, see, the type is of type products that go ahead. It comes from the DB context. It's available via the Entity Framework. It's available from the Entity Framework because we are inherited from DB context. This DB set is part of Entity Framework. It's how Entity Framework understands, oh, I need a table there. I need to have a table there, and the entries of my table will be products. They have to match our product class. So, okay?
This set will create a table of products.
The Entity Framework will read this, and when it sees that, oh, there's a DB set, okay, so I better create a table of products.
Table of all products.
Yes, to store all products, yes.
What is the relation of this property with this constructor? What is this constructor doing?
with the relation of this with the constructor? Not much. I mean, the constructor is just to give you the initial link between the database and in this context here. Because here's the thing. The application DB context is, again, like a bridge. A bridge between what? Your repository, which we didn't even open it yet, here, and an entity framework, okay? So here, we just have the connection to that database, which it needs to know that, because otherwise it doesn't know where is the database that they need to connect. And then here we are just specifying another property. It's just a regular property here that happens to be this new type called dbsets that we have not seen before. But this becomes our product table because of that.
So the dbset will create the table of products, right?
Entity framework will read that, and because there is a dbsets there, entity framework will create a table called products, yes.
We'll get the fields from the product class.
Yes, correct. And we're going to do that next, okay? A lot of next here. So let's see if we can, let's see what we get next. Okay, so let's go to the startup, because here is one thing that I would like you to have in mind. The program class, actually, our MVC application is just a console application. I don't know if you remember, if you recall console application, but console application, it has a program class, okay? In a program class, it has the main method. So the application starts from here. So the only job that program is doing is creating a web application, okay? Let's just have that in mind. And then startup is where we do the basic plumbing of our MVC application. What do I mean by plumbing? Oh, okay, so if you think about, again, about a house, there's a lot behind the scene that you don't see. It's not apparent to you. The electrical part of the house, the plumbing part of the house, those are not, you don't see them, but they are there. You know that they are there. So startup is like is the plumbing of our application, and here we do configuration. We add service to our application, and we do, from those services, we add configuration. That's where we're going to be reading the app settings, and we're going to be, whatever we read from that, we're going to be giving to app DB context. It's going to be doing this right here. But first, we have to have a way to access app settings. So that's what we're going to be doing now. We're going to be doing something, we're going to be using something called configuration. This configuration class, the main objective, the main purpose of this class will be to access the contents of app setting. So I'm going to start that. I'm going to declare a public field here called configuration. And, sorry, the type first. So this will be an I configuration, which I'm going to just call configuration here for the sake of it. And we have to add a namespace. The namespace that I configuration comes from is Microsoft extensions configuration. So I'm going to be adding this namespace so I can access the I configuration. Now, when you see an I whatever, it's just an interface. So this is just declaring. It's not creating it. Something else needs to create that, okay? Because we rely quite a lot on this thing called the words are, I'm missing the words today. Dependency injection, okay? We're gonna use dependency injection to be able to create this configuration. So, and who provides that to us? MVC. I spoke a lot, I didn't say too much. Let me show you. We're gonna create here the constructor of this class of startup. Right now it does not have it has the default constructor. I'm gonna create a public constructor it has to have the same name as the class. I'm going to send as a parameter, I'm going to send I configuration. And I'm going to call this, just for the sake of example here, conf. And I'm going to open and close here. I'm going to say then configuration equals to conf. So with that, what I'm saying is that whenever you create, the application creates a startup class, it expects this parameter called conf, which is the configuration object. It's still an interface. Something is calling this startup and sending in a concrete class for this conf parameter here. Something. What is this something? This something is MVC. MVC is doing that for us. Okay? We don't see that explicitly, but in MVC we trust. So MVC is calling that startup behind the scenes, and it looks, oh, it needs an I configuration. Internally, MVC has a concrete class that gets inserted whenever an I configuration gets called. So when it gets created, a concrete object gets passed over, gets set to configuration, and now in my code, I can use configuration objects to reach to the contents of our app settings. Now, here's the thing. The good thing is that you just need to do that once, and then you can carry on with the rest of your application. Again, there are a lot of details in this building the plumbing part. Once we are done with the plumbing part, we can then move ahead to the more high-level aspects of our application, like creating models, creating views, creating controllers. What we are seeing now is the plumbing part of connecting to the database, okay? So again, you will not be repeating this too much. For each new application, yes, you're going to repeat that. But once you have one done, to be quite honest, you just look at it, so, okay, so I need a configuration. So look at the one that you have as a reference point and just use it here, okay? So again, lots of little things here to pay attention. So we create configuration. Now we are ready to use configuration, okay? Great. Okay, so now in the configuration services, now this is where I will have, because this is a long line, I'm going to use this line here. I'm going to break it down and see what's going on here. Okay. So first, let's sort this out already. So we need to use another namespace. So I'm just going to go and say using Microsoft Entity Framework Core, which will be added to the very top here. So it has been added here. Now, what is this line doing? Well. This is where we are telling the application that whenever the application needs a bridge between the repository and the database, it will use the application DB context, and we're going to send to it these options here. Options is saying that we are using a SQL Server. LocalDB is a kind of a SQL Server, smaller, as I said, but it's SQL Server in any case. Smaller one, just a smaller one. We're going to be using SQL Server, and now, look at this. We are calling our new object configuration. Configuration, what is the goal of configuration? Just to be able to read what is here. And this is what we are reading. I'm saying, hey, get the configuration of this location here in this file. Data, it's in, again, we can look at the app settings. See, we have data, sports store products, connection string. That address that you see there will return this part here, this string, okay? Now, I think that the author of the book, and by the way, this is chapter 8, he just went a little bit, I mean, we could simplify this. It could be just 2 levels here. It could be just data in connection string. It should be enough. He went with 3 levels. That's fine. Don't ask me why he decided to do that. It can be simpler. Okay? The only thing that this will impact is that this, in the startup, becomes a little bit longer. Data, column, the other key, column, sorry. The data nodes, the sports store products nodes, the connection string nodes, this will return what's inside of this key. It will return this. It would be the same if I would have hard-coded this thing here. I could say this. I could have said something like this. Instead of using this line, I could have said this, and we would not need the configuration. Just going to give you this example. I could have said, hey, let's not use configuration. Let's just use the string right away. So I could say something like this. We could have said that. Now, who can tell me the disadvantage of using that? Again, we could have just placed there. So why bother with a configuration file like this? If I can just put it there, I don't need configuration. Why is this not so good practice, I would say? Exactly. Because once we move the application, let's say, to a live environment, the connection string may change. And now we have to open the source code and recompile, because this will be compiled. Remember, this will be created into a DLL. Now, if we have that connection string inside the app settings, then we just have to go to this file. It's a text file. We open it up, and we change the connection string. We don't have to recompile the application. That's why. Okay? So we're not going to be using that. I'm going to comment this out. And I'm going to keep the first one. So, how does it feel? How does it feel? It's a lot, isn't it? Yeah? Who's confused? Just me? How can I facilitate or lessen the confusion? I mean, in any particular aspect. Because here's the thing. There are certain things that we need time to digest, to let it sink, and try it out a few times, and now it will make more sense, okay? Again.
Every time we're going to make application access with database, let's say for the next assignment,
Yep.
you ask us to import database. So we have to use the address, setup, upsetting, and all the codes there. Like, this is the basic in every application.
Every application that uses database, yes, it is. It is. But again, the good thing is that it's done once, and that's it. You are free to go. You are free to go and do your models and do whatever else you need to do, okay? Okay. Okay. Now what? That's the question. Now what? What's next step here to make this database happen? How about let's not touch yet on the int product repository. Actually, I think that we should take care of that. Let's have a look at here, at the int framework repository. Okay, great. So in a way, we took care with the simple steps that we went through. We took care of creating this guy here. Okay, and this guy is already connected to the database. Now let's go backwards here and let's take care of creating this entity framework repository, product repository. So as you can see, there is a link between our context and the entity framework repository. There's a link. This link is made concrete via a private property inside of product repository that refers to the context. Because each and every repository that you're going to be creating, it needs to access the database. Okay? So I need to declare inside of this guy our bridge. It needs to use the bridge to be able to get the data. Okay? So that's what we see as a next step here. See, we have our entity framework product repository, which inherits from my product repository. And we have the DB context. That's how the repository is able to connect to the database, to get data and to send data. So this is the connection point with the data source, okay? Now, we have here the constructor of our entity framework product repository. See, we just declared here, but we didn't create it. We just declared. Somewhere else in our code needs to create that. What does that? This does that. This constructor sends in a concrete object of type application DB context, and it sets to the context here. So who is doing that? Who is calling this? MVC. We don't create this repository manually. It's created by MVC behind the scenes. When MVC creates that, it says, oh, did anyone configured this DB application context? Was that configured before? Well, that's what we did in our startup class. This is configuring the application DB context. Now, I don't need to send the address of the database each and every time. I just set it here and use anywhere I want, like the product repository. I just make a reference here, okay? And with this, I can now say context, which is the bridge, is the DB context here. Get me the products. And it goes to the database, and it retrieves the products using this public property called products. How about we start to see some stuff in action here? Let me give you a break. I think that we all need 5 minutes. We'll be back, and we hopefully we'll finish this. I said, I promised you that it would not be. Anyway, let's go there. Let's go there. 5 minutes. Repository is the in-memory representation of the database. If you don't have a repository, you'd have to perform any operation right away with the database. The repository is just an in-memory representation of the database. It's what you see there is this repository pattern. You have a representation of the database in memory, and then as you're going to see. Not immediately next, but as you create the seed data, you're going to see that we add a lot of products, and at the very end you say context.save changes. All the products were added in memory. When we call save changes, everything is flushed out to the database. So think of a repository as a representation of the data in memory that the application can use, and then the application can abstract the details of dealing with the database and let the context take care of that. Again, I'll be honest, this was a hard concept for me to grasp as well, okay? So
actually, while we are running the application, we are saving the data to the
repository. Yes.
So when the power shut down, it all clear up, right?
Okay. Yes, so you have to be careful with those kinds of things. For instance, when we are doing the seed, let me open it here. when you have the seed data. See, it does this add, and then it saves right away. So it's almost in a single, it will be very, in our case here, very hard that right here, the power went down, and then in our situation, the power went down, and then all is gone. So you have to be mindful about how frequently you're really saving that and how efficient you are doing that. So usually after a set of changes, there will be a save changes there that will flush out to the database. Okay?
So there will not be anything remaining in the repository? Or
No, every time that you run the application, depending on what you're doing, if you might be retrieving all the products right away, so all the products will be in memory. Okay? So yeah.
So the application is continuously running, right, in the server?
Well, if as you're saying, if we have a shutdown and the application stopped, it may have stopped
Okay. So from where we are fetching the data?
from the database. So we are fetching right here. When we say this, look at the controller here. In the controller, we have, see, we are calling repository.products. When we call .products, that's when it's fetched.
Yeah. So we are fetching from the repository or database?
We're fetched from the repository here. The repository says, is it fetched already? Yes, great. So use whatever is in memory. It's not yet. Okay, so go there and grab it. Okay?
So why do we need a fake repository and...
Well, we don't need a fake. That fake is just simulating another repository. It's just a simulation.
Okay, we need only one repository, right?
Well, we need one repository per, I would say, per entity. Per entity. You're gonna have, I think we're gonna have orders as well, order repository, something like that, as we move forward. But yes, we just need one repository. Okay. Now, we may have, as I said, if you want to test another strategy to retrieve data, you may want to have a second repository. Let me test the second one and see which one performs better. That's what the video was talking about. I would urge you to watch that video again, paying very close attention to what the guy is saying, because what he's saying is really the reason why we use not the framework. We use this strategy, the repository pattern. He explained that very, if you really pay attention closely to what he's saying, he's explaining exactly that. Okay? No problem. What's up? No problem.
I have a question about the assignment.
Yep.
It's mentioned here that clicking on icon should load
Okay.
the first
Sorry.
page.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Actually, here's the thing. Now I remembered that I said last time that you don't have to. You have to. Remember that you asked me this question, and I said I think I told you that you don't have to do that in the view.
It is on the first assignment, but like now in the second we have to.
Yeah, in the second we have to do. Well,
Yeah, I just want to ask.
we're gonna be exploring some of that later. But think of this. Actually, I'm just trying to think where in the sports store we have an example like that. In the next, let's see here. In the next set, in chapter 9 of the sports store, you have a situation that you do paging. You do paging, and then you have to send page 1, page 2, page 2. You have to send the number of the page. You're going to have to do something similar here, but you're going to have to send the recipe ID. You're going to have to send the recipe ID via the link tag as one of the tag helpers. There's something called, you can say, ASP-route-recipe ID. The recipe ID becomes a parameter in the URL, and then you can say recipe ID number 1 or 2 or 3, whatever is the number there in your loop. So again, and then you can grab that ID in the action. I would urge you to really follow this particular video. I will show you which video is that one, but there's one video right away in chapter 9 that you're going to see it to take care of paging, and you're going to use the same concept to do the loading of a particular recipe via the ID, via its ID, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so let's see where we are here. Okay, so let's have a look at this. I think that now that we have the application DB context, and application DB context is connecting, is requiring the products here, we are ready to move forward and create the next step, which is the migration scripts. Migration scripts is how Entity Framework will read this code and will figure out that it needs to create a database, it needs to create a table. The table must have all those fields. That's the next step that we're going to do right now, okay? So we're going to use a little bit of command line here. I'm going to have to go to the command line of Windows. And if you need, by the way, if you need to move to a different drive, you just say the drive name, column, hit enter. I mean, of course, I don't have one. And then you can say CD the location. I'm going to just grab the location here of my folder. And again, it has to be the project folder, not the solution folder, okay? So it has to be the folder inside. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do CD that. So I enter in the folder, and then I can run. Now, before you are able to run this command, you have to make sure that your application is compiling well. Not only that, but that's all saved. You see, when I do a minor change here, you see the little asterisk here that shows. It tells me that this file has been modified, but not saved, okay? So I'm going to save everything here. And then I'm going to compile, just to make sure that it's compiling. So I can go to build, rebuild solution. Let's have a look. You usually see that, see, when you see this icon here, it's still compiling. In the output, you see, 1 succeeded, 0 failed, so we are good here. Now, I'm going to go to the command line, and I'm going to say .NET EF from Entity Framework, okay? Then, I think it's migrations, plural, and then we're going to add a new set of migration scripts. This name that I'm going to type in right now could be anything. This could be anything, okay? This will be the name used when you're going to look at some files a little bit later. See, right now, if we look at the folder, there is no folder called migrations here. When I hit enter here, you're going to see a new folder with files inside. So let's have a look here. Okay, red is bad. Yellow is good, green is good, okay? Don't worry about the warning here, it's just talking about the data type of price. That's okay. Warning, we don't want to worry about warnings at this point, okay? So it's all good. Usually what I see problems here is the connection string was not, see the connection string that was added to the startup, this path here, has a misspelling. So if it has a misspelling, you're going to have an error. If it has a space, you're going to have an error, okay? So if you see connection null or something like that, it's because there is a misplacement of a character that's between this path and what it says in the app settings, okay? Now, it's all good here. If you look, we have this migrations folder. If you look inside, we have a few different files of, I'm just, not that you should care about that, but I'm just going to open for the sake of it. You see, Entity Framework read the model, and now it says, okay, I'm going to create, I figured I'm going to create a products table. Products table has a product ID, name, description, price, category, and product in the primary key of my product table is product ID. You don't need to worry about this. I just wanted to show that it's going to do that. Now, you have a question?
How did the migration identify that product ID is in primary?
Because of the ID. Because of the name ID. If I have said product code, most likely it wouldn't have recognized that. There is a lot of assumptions that entity framework will do on your model. That's the reason why, if you want a field to be the primary key, call it something ID. It will figure that out. If you call something else, you'd have to tag that field as being the key of the. We're not going to see that right now, but again, you could do by tagging the property product code as the key. You have to add an annotation there. Okay, that would be the other way to explicitly say I want this field to be the primary key. Okay. Okay. We have our migration scripts. Then what? Database is not created yet. We don't have a database yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can look at the databases on your local DB. So you can go to View, SQL Server, Object Explorer. Then, in my case, I have 3 local DBs. Don't ask me why. There's one that is system related, but the one that you should look like, that you should pay attention, is the one that says local DB /MS SQL local DB. This is the name of our local database, which, if you see, it matches the name of the server that we have in our connection string. Okay? Now, if I expand there, and I expand database, I have it there already, but it was not created now. It was created because I ran this before. I'm just going to delete. Again, you won't see that there if you are up to this point. So migration scripts, when the first command that I run is just to create the files, these files, the folder in these files here. Okay? Now, in my next step, I'm going to create the database. In your case, if you follow the video, if you followed this in the video, you did not see a second set of a second command line because the class called seedData was the one that created the database for you. In my case here, I want to show you that explicitly. So we're going to go back here to the command line, and you're going to run this other command, which will read the scripts that were generated before and create our actual database. Okay, so again, look at this. Database here, if I refresh, I no longer see Sports Store. Now, I'm going to run this .NET EF database update. So what this will do, it will read the migration scripts, and it will create the database. I'm going to hit enter, and voila, let's see. It will take a few seconds for that to run. Still running. As long as you don't see the command line again, you just have to wait. Great, so again, if you scroll up, no red message there, all green and yellow, that's all good. So now if I go back to my local database, if I right click there and if I refresh, now I see it again. And by the way, again, just to highlight, it's because I had this already created before, at another time here. So if I go expand tables, I can see now the products table. I can see the columns. Look at that. Product ID, name, description, price, and category. This other table here, this is an internal table used by the migration scripts to keep track of things. We don't need to worry about that table. It's just used internally. Now, I see a lot of students during your assignments or doing this exercise. Sometimes you are making changes to the models, and then the database gets out of sync with what you're doing. The best way, the simplest way is delete the database, delete the migration folder, recreate them. Recreate with those 2 commands. Recreate the migration scripts, recreate the database. This is the starting from scratch approach that will allow you to reset things and start over again, okay? There are other things in case you don't want to lose the database and start it again, but I think you can see that it's enough. No, this is already enough. Okay, Any question at this point? I should have warned you that I would be asked this question and nobody would have a question, not because it's clear, but because it's, woo.
Now, what if I have another table that's going to synchronize with the class?
In other case. So if you add another model here, you would have to add, so let's go to the application DB. So add another model, you would have to add another DB set here. And let's say, let's give an example of categories. Let's say that we have a product category table. So you'd have category here. And then we'd have a new line here that says public DB set category, categories. And then we would run the migration scripts again, so it could regenerate the scripts, and then we run the updates to the database again. So every time you make a change, you have to run the scripts again.
Yeah, the question is, what if I have data database?
That's okay. That's okay, because here's the thing. When you run the migration scripts again, if there was a script that ran before, the first script doesn't run again. I'm gonna say that again. We run initial, correct? Remember, initial, we did the initial one. If you run a second set of migration scripts based on additional changes that you may have done, this will keep the old scripts. You're going to create a new set of scripts. When you update the database, it will only run the second set of scripts, not the first one, because the first one ran already before. So the data will be kept. Does that make sense?
So if we want to recreate a database, we have to delete the migration folder, and then we can run it one more time.
So migration, if you did not change anything in the model, and if you have a migration already created, you can just delete the database and run the update, run the second command again. The one that updates the database, it will recreate the database. If you make change to the model and you want to regenerate the database, you can delete everything. Now, you can always run a second set of migration scripts and keep the old one. I'm just saying that, as I said before, the simplest way is delete database, delete migration scripts, recreate it again. The more complicated way is that one. Let's say that you have some data in the products table already, and you don't want to lose it. Should I delete and recreate? No. You can run the migration scripts again with a different name. Let's say you use initial, for the initial one, you can do second. Call it however you want. But you run the migration scripts again. The migration scripts will create another set of files just with the updates that you have done here, just with the changes. Maybe you change the name of one of the fields. Maybe you add a different model. But the second time, it will only add. It will not recreate everything. It will just add on top of the initial migration scripts. When you run the update again, it will just run the second set of updates. Again, to be quite honest, I don't expect you to live here knowing every single thing that I mentioned here. It's just too much. Practice will really help you with what we're doing, okay? Okay, so we have our database. We have our class. What if I try to run the application right now? What will happen? A wild guess. What will show up, actually? Let's give this a try. What should I expect to show up? What will happen here? Come on, before it shows up, what do you expect to happen?
Display tables.
What is it displaying here? The hard-coded one. It's displaying the hard-coded, is it? Why is that? What is it that we did not do yet? We did not? Okay. So remember, we did not change the link between iRepository. Right now, the application, let's go here to our diagram. Right now, our application is still configured to whenever you need an iProduct repository, use this one. So it's this link here is still in code. We need to change that. We need to make it whenever you need iProduct repository, use this one here. Where is that? Where is that in the code? It's in the startup. Okay, so let's have a look at there. And let me just make some space here. Okay. Configure services. Yeah, they add transients. That's it. We're just going to take care of this right now and say entity framework. And here, see, this is where the power of this lies. Because now we didn't have to make any change to the rest of the application. We just had to change one line of code. And now instead of using that repository, it's using this. We didn't have to reprogram the application, reprogram the UI, nothing, because it's loosely coupled. Just one line of code that is linking this to this. And now we change to link to this one. One line of code, instead of having to do that throughout the entire application. That is the repository pattern. That's the power of the repository pattern. That now all of a sudden, now, of course, you may think, but do I have to create a fake repository? I mean, no, fake repository is just a sample here, just an example. I could have other, not that you're going to have them running in parallel, but you can test how other strategies to access database, how they perform by creating now, let's say, an ADO product repository. And then you test it. Okay, it's faster or it's slower. Again, now all of a sudden you can test things. You can see there's a new framework coming next year. Is it better than the current one? Let's see. Let's try. Let's test. Let me tell you this. Systems are always evolving. Always, always. Okay? You have a lot of legacy systems that they keep trying to, okay, let's see what performs better. Again, what we're looking at here, as top edge in 2-3 years, there'll be something else replacing this. Okay? But you're going to have legacy codes to test, to work with. Okay? Okay, so now if I try to run, what will happen? What will happen if I try to run it now? What will show up? Let's give it a try. Let's give it a try here. We create the database, but there is nothing there. Okay, so hopefully, let's see here. So there's nothing there. So we did create our seed data. Again, the purpose of the seed data class is just to populate some data. There's nothing special about that thing there, okay? Actually, in your application, in your project application, you may want to create a seed class just to populate some recipes, just to add some recipes there. So you don't have to create recipe manually when you want to. Add a seed class, but you don't have to add a seed class, okay? So this step here that I'm going to show, I would call it's optional, okay? Okay, now let me do one thing here. Before I go through that, let me just, actually, I'll do that later. It's the attendance, but I don't want to miss that. Okay, so for the seed class, I'm just going to add a new class here called seed data. And it is a long file, so I'm not going to type in that entire file. I'm just going to copy here. I will explain the main parts of this code. So the seed data, because it's just a class to seed some information, to add some information. We are using static here, so we don't have to instantiate. So we use a static class, static ensure populated. This method receives an application builder. We're going to call this from our startup. So at the bottom of our startup, we're going to say something like this. Seed data, and then we're going to add we're going to call ensure populated. Why is this here? Okay. Oh, yes. So we're going to say app here. This app is coming from here, okay? So this app is coming from right here because we need to access the context, the database context, okay? So we're going to use this as our starting point. And then we close this, and okay, now I have, yeah. Okay, so we are calling it. Now, what is this doing? Well, let me walk you through. So first, we get the context to the database via this app. So again, we are just getting the connection. Connection string is not here because we have that set up already under the startup, okay? So we get the context. This line, again, this line is really optional. Remember the second comment that I typed in, the one that created the database? This is what this line of code does. So if I did not have typed the update database command, this would have created the database for us. At this point, to be quite honest, we can get rid of it. We could just comment this out. In the video, I'm not showing the second comment line, but we are using the seed data, so this line is the one taking care of creating the database for us. Okay, this is the line. And because of this line, I'm quite sure that this is the reason why you did that modification in the program. See that extra line that you have to add here, which, to be quite honest, I don't really remember that whole line. So I will go to my old copy and paste. Okay, so see, this line was the only reason why we had to do this is because of this particular line here, because we are creating the database. But again, it won't have any impact here. Now, we connect to the database, we migrate the database. Again, I commented this out for now. What is this doing? What is this if doing? Look at that if, and what is it about? If there's no products, then add them. So this is just to assure that this code will only run once. Otherwise, every time that we run this code, what will happen? We're going to keep adding. You're going to keep adding, okay? So again, this is just saying, hey, are there any products? If there is, this becomes, no, this is true, it becomes false, so it skips. It doesn't save it. It doesn't add anymore. Now, and then we use add range to add many products at once to the products repository, okay? To the product content. Now, this is only in memory, okay? So we add. At the very bottom, we call save changes. Because when we are adding them, we're just adding in memory. It's not added to the database yet. When we call save changes, then whatever changes you did to the products, it gets flushed out to the database and stored in the database. If you delete products, if you update products, you have to call save changes so it can be flushed out to the database and really update the database, okay? Let's give it a try. Yeah, go ahead.
Why do we need to see data in real application?
We don't, unless you are doing some tests. Unless you are doing some tests and you need some dummy data. But this is just dummy data. I would recommend to do that in your assignment as well, so you can have some initial load of recipes. So you don't have to be typing every time, oh, now I need to recreate the database. And then you're going to lose all your products again, or all your recipes again. So you may want to do a seed data because of that. It will save you time, typing time, okay? Okay, so let's run this, and now we should be able to see some products there. And there we have, okay? It's just that simple. It's that simple. Questions? Let's see if there is anything here going on. See, no questions. That's great. Okay, let me see if I'm missing anything here. Okay, so here's what I would like to do. Actually, before that, any questions you want to ask me now? If you don't ask now, you'll never be able to ask me that anymore.
So when you create the database store, you go to command format, and then you type sport.
The commands?
And then the name
Yeah,
of database update. But
you have
it
to
doesn't-
go. You have to go inside the folder. Yep, and then you have to type that command. First, you enter in the folder, then you can type generate the migration script, which is the first one, then the second one, which is the update database. If it's not working, I can have a look one-on-one with you, okay? Okay, so here's what I would like to do. While I take attendance, take 5 minutes, jot down your notes, to be honest, for you to be able to recall some of what we have gone through. You always have the videos there. You always have, me as well to help you out. As I said, I'm not going to walk you through every single line of Chapter 8. Chapter 8, what I went through today is 2 videos. Now, it's the most complicated aspect of the entire chapter. I have to be honest. It's the most complicated, the most important one. The other aspects of the chapter, well, 2 I will start next Friday, which is the routing and the partial views. I'll be showing next Friday them. If you want to go through each and every video and get deeper, I'm here for you. If you want to focus on the aspects that I'm covering here, presenting to you, that's okay as well. What I'm going to be asking during assignments, during tests, is what I'm able to present here. I'm not going to look for footnotes in page 249 that says this particular. No, it's not what we're doing here. I want you to leave here with a high-level understanding. And again, we're going to apply database, we're going to apply routing, we're going to apply partial views, but I'll be explaining those. There is a lot more content there in Chapter 8 than this, but go on your own, do your own thing there if you want to get deeper, and I'm here to assist you. If you don't, that's fine as well. Let's focus on the main content, because as I said, I'm focusing here on the main contents, on the main concepts in application of each and every chapter. You have the source code there, complete source codes. And yeah, take 5 minutes, jot down your notes as I do the attendance, as I take the attendance. Okay, so Andre, Amal, Avjit, Atika, yeah, I got it. Chu Yon Young, Curtis, Danish, Diego, Ederson, EJ, Grace, Grace. It's here. Yeah, well, I was looking for you. Sorry. Harbin. Hassan. Jared. Josh. Joyce. Yep. Ken. Crisel. Manal. Ali. Mohammed Ali. He was here. Shibli. Martha. Natalia. Richard. Ru Seong Yu. Room Seong. Saida. Shaniqua. Vadim, yep. Vadim. Vandana. Vladislav. Yep. If I did not call your name, let me know.
Yeah, so you need to run the two .NET commands, and then you'll have this is one time.
Yeah.
Can we see the two .NET commands?
If you can see?
Yeah.
Yep, no problem. So it's a .NET framework, migrations, add, then .NET framework. Let me see here, this one's database updates, database update. Okay, so hopefully you were able to write down a few of your notes there. And the idea now is to share that, and some of you are already doing that, that's fine. Share that with your neighbor. And again, you can take your notes, he or she will take his notes, and hopefully combine that and make your notes more richer. Before you do that, let me just mention this. For next class, for Friday, I would ask you, this is not graded, there's no bonus associated with that, it's just an activity, to go through videos 1, 2, 3, 4 of chapter 9, and the same deal. Submit 3 questions, but again, this is not bonus related. I want to see who will still do them. If it's not attached to bonus, let's see, I'm watching you. So that's it. Now, for you to start this, you should go to the very last file of the source code of chapter 8. So to start chapter 9, go and use, I cannot make it higher, part 14 of chapter 8, because this will give you the starting point of chapter 9. Does it make sense? Because if it does not, again, the very last file means that this file has the entire chapter 8 completed. Use this as a starting point to start chapter 9. Okay? So you don't have to start from scratch. Okay? Okay, great. So again, let's take a few more minutes, work with your neighbor there, and then we'll wrap things up. Okay?
During the live implementation, do we need to run the migration scripts or just once?
Every time you make a change to the model, you need to if you make a change to the model, you need to. Now, what are you change? Maybe you add a new property. Maybe you add a new model. You need to run it again because it doesn't sync automatically. The migration scripts, they need to be generated first, and then you can run the update database. So the scripts can run in the database and can make the change to the database. So 3 steps. Run the migration script so it can recreate the files, and then run the update so it can apply the changes to the database.
So instead of directly changing to the database itself, we're just going to write the
So instead of
accessing the database itself to perform updates.
yes,
We need to run the
we will run that. Yes, we don't need to update manually. You can change manually. That's fine. Yeah. So the idea of the migration scripts is that it can help you with that. The idea is helping. Once you know those 2 commands, it becomes very easy to make changes to the database. Because again, you change the class, you apply. Okay. Anything there?
I have a question.
Sure.
So my server page, when I was trying to pass the comment, it passes only the comment. It doesn't pass the username.
In the comments. Okay. So, you are really trying to get advanced there. I mean, do you have a login Do you have login already
No,
in the
no,
application?
no, no. You just when you leave review, you type your name.
Oh, so we have a field give name. Okay, so in the name is not getting captured. Show me the form. Show me the form that is capturing. Okay, so you have username. Okay, review. Which model is that? Recipe. Okay, but recipe. Okay, so you have there. Okay, so, but now username. Okay, so show me there. Username. Username. Okay, leave recipe. Can you show me leave recipe action? Can you show me the action called leave recipe?
Oh, leave review?
Yeah. Sorry, it's leave review. Is that? Can you go back there just to make sure? So, leave review. Yes. Show me there the controller. So you're passing the. I wonder if the comment is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you show me there again the form? I'm wondering if. Can you show me the class, the recipe class again? I wonder if there's any. I'll check that. But maybe there's something particular about the term username that might be messing things up. Do this, so I can test. Zip up your project, send via Slack, and I'll have a look. I'm curious to know why it's happening as well. Send via Slack. Log into Slack and send it to the Slack channel. It becomes easy. Email, it will block the attachment usually. Okay? Okay, so, you have a question? Ask me. Okay, I'll be there in a second, so hold on a second. Anyone wants to share any of your, I guess, takeaways, notes? I mean, just one. Well, not just one person, but you just say share one. Again, anyone? One quick note takeaway that you, hopefully that you at least wrote down from this whole. Say it again? No. This is just for you. No need to submit, no need to upload, nothing. Oh, what you did now? The exercise? The notes that you just. For your own use. For your own use. Just to share verbally. Verbally, yes. So, do you want one?
It's not really necessary. It's not really comfortable to how was it called an app setting if it has a string? Connection string, yes.
It's connection string, yeah. Okay, good one. Anybody else? Or just want to rush? Okay, so again, I hope that you got some good notes. We're going to be back on Friday. Get ready for Friday with the next set of videos. And again, we keep moving forward. I know it was a lot. I understand that if you got overwhelmed, but hey, that's what you sign up for, okay? We see each other again this Friday. Thank you very much. Mohammed, Ali, I'll check their yours, okay? Let me just close things up here. It's okay. I'll be there.
Yeah.
What's up?
I have.
Okay.
As I asked you last.
Yep.
Yeah, I was able to do it, so I.
Oh, the template thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was able
So how does it look like?
I showed you now. It is running. So
Okay.
I was able to even though go through the.
To page some fancy stuff. I see. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yes.
We can't use visually. We can't use the controls from ASP.NET to the control. To the pages. No, I mean like the text box, just drag and drop. No, we can't do that. No. So we have to combine the HTML with the.
Yes.
That's the only way.
Oh, well, there might be other tools out there, but with Visual Studio you cannot use .NET Framework. Sorry, because .NET Framework is a different framework. Those controls are for .NET Framework.
Yeah.
We are using .NET Core.
Yeah.
So they are not. .NET Framework controls don't work inside of .NET Core. They don't work.
Okay.
They are not compatible. It's a different approach to the. It's a different framework. .NET Framework is a framework. .NET Core is not a framework.
Okay.
They are not the same. They are not compatible.
Can't.
We cannot.
Okay, this was my question because I really, I was trying to fix the things up. So usually it goes this way. I have to do the layout HTML and then migrate to .NET. Is that the way?
You mean the layout there in real life? Well, in real life, if you are just the only person developing the full stack,
Yeah.
yes, you'd have to go outside and do the front ends.
Yeah.
And then combine with the back ends.
Okay.
In a bigger team, you have front end people, you have back end people sometimes.
How are you gonna?
Well, the back end people will tell the front end people what names they are expecting, what kind of things they are expecting,
Yeah.
so they can be in sync. So it doesn't mean that there is no communication. There must be some communication there.
Okay.
Okay? Makes
Thank you.
sense? No problem.
Thank you.